Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Perspective. We'll be talking about the ceasefire as far as Palestine and Israel is concerned, the ramifications of this. Of course, we also know that inauguration of Donald Trump, President-elect of United States, is scheduled to be tomorrow. The ramifications overall on the international scene, and as far as Palestine and Israel is concerned, what do we expect now? What this means for the people of Palestine, what this means for the region overall, as we've also seen the rejoicing. Of course, we've also seen those that have lost their loved ones, and of course them wanting to go and find them. And there's a bittersweet kind of we know that kind of an atmosphere as far as this ceasefire is concerned, and there's immense relief, of course, for those that continue to suffer, have suffered for so long as far as Palestine and Israel is concerned. Of course, by Israel, the kind of atrocities that we've seen on our Palestinian brothers, we'll be talking about we'll be talking about that, and of the inauguration tomorrow. We'll be going to a package by Anam here, our correspondent, who, as far as the inauguration of President Donald Trump is concerned. Let's go see, and then we'll be right back.
The inauguration day for President-elect Donald Trump is on the horizon and is expected to be a day for the peaceful transfer of power of the highest office in the United States. The inauguration ceremony will take place on January 20, 2025. This will mark the start of Trump's second non-consecutive term in the Oval Office. Scheduled for noon, Trump's inauguration event will occur at the U.S. Capitol in Washington, D.C. Trump will be sworn in his second non-consecutive term to the Oval Office as the 47th U.S. President. The invitation to Pakistan has been sent by the Trump Inaugural Committee. Pakistan's envoy in Washington, Rizwan Saeed Sheikh, will represent the government of Pakistan to the oath-taking ceremony of President-elect Donald Trump on January 20. Inviting foreign leaders and ministers to the oath-taking is a new and dramatic policy initiated by Donald Trump in 2025, as earlier it was the tradition of the U.S. administration to only invite the foreign envoys stationed in Washington, D.C. to the oath-taking ceremony. Pakistan is aiming to revitalize the diplomatic engagements and potentially pave the way for future collaborations with the Trump government. Pakistan's participation in the oath-taking ceremony of Donald Trump is a move to develop strong bilateral ties between the Trump government and Pakistani government. We are looking forward to develop strong bilateral economic and political stability between the two countries. Reporting for PTV World, this is Wajih Abbasi.
Right, welcome back. We have with us in the studio Wajih Abbasi, who's an IR expert. Thank you for being with us today. We also have with us Dr. Jamil Ahmed Khan, who's a former ambassador. Thank you for joining us. Jauhar Saleem, who's President IRS. Thank you for being with us today. During the course of the program, we'll also be joined by other guests. I'm going to go to Wajih Abbasi Sahab here in the studio. Wajih Sahab, like we were earlier saying, I mean, of course, the inauguration of Donald Trump is tomorrow. We know that he's going to be sworn in as, the future president of the United States. In the background, of course, we also want to discuss the situation as far as the ceasefire, as far as for the Palestinian people are concerned. It means an end to the Israeli atrocities. How are you looking at that? Because like you said, there was an earlier attempt which didn't really work out. But of course, if the US, and we've been talking about this for a while, is adamant that the ceasefire should go ahead, then it seems likely that it will.
This is very positive development for both for the world and particularly for the Palestinian people of the Gaza Strip, who have been suffering a lot since October 7, 2023, and more than 100,000 people actually have died in that conflict. the Israeli bombardment of Gaza Strip, and the whole area has been destroyed. And this sort of ceasefire and end of hostilities in that area was long due. Actually, it was just a massacre of the Palestinian people. And this ceasefire, if it goes in, it has already gone into effect, and the Hamas leadership has released 3 Israeli women who have gone to the Israeli forces, and they have been handed over to Red Cross and then to Israeli forces, and so the process has already started, and the Israeli forces will be withdrawn from the area in next 7 weeks. So this is positive development, and this is first sign of, this has happened just before the inauguration. So this has given a sort of Trump is known for making deals and making these types of things work, and it has started working just even before his inauguration. So that's a positive build-up.
Let me go to Jauhar Saleem Sahab, and then I will come back. Jauhar Sahab, we've spoken about this before, about, of course, the US and the US standing behind a ceasefire. What do you have to say today about where we are and what's likely to be the situation henceforth?
Finally, we are seeing a ceasefire taking effect. I had said in many of my previous commentaries that this ceasefire is going to happen once Trump inaugurates. And as we have seen, Trump has taken full credit of that, and it's just happening a day before his inauguration. So the credit would go to Trump. The Israelis have made statements in this regard as well. The deal that we see is an interesting one, and I think it's the same one which had been negotiated for what they call 411 days so far. About 30 some hostages being released by Israel in the first phase. And in lieu of that, about 200 hostages from the Palestinian side. But eventually what they plan to do is about 90 hostages, the Israeli hostages, which include some foreigners as well, in lieu of about 2,000 Palestinian hostages. That is one aspect of the deal. The other aspect, of course, is that the Israeli forces would withdraw, which is very important. They would cease fire, so to speak, cease the operations. And equally importantly, they would allow the aid convoys in. Thousands of those aid trucks have been waiting. Very little aid so far has been allowed. And that is why there has been almost a starvation type of a state there. So I think this is a welcome relief. Egypt, Qatar, and of course the Americans, they played a crucial role in that. But the important thing here is that this deal has 3 phases. The first phase is supposed to last 6 weeks. And on the 16th day of that period, they are supposed to start negotiating the second phase and the third phase. And that would be really important because, we all recall that in November they had a peace ceasefire. It lasted about a week, during which dozens of hostages were released.
Earlier, and this is what we were talking about earlier, and I want to come to that, of course, we want this to go through in all its entirety. And like you said, that it has phases. How much concern is there that, things may not, and one hope that doesn't happen? What chances are there of that happening?
There is a significant concern because, especially on the Israeli side, because once they have the hostages or majority of the hostages, and after that, what they would want to do is, because the very important part is what happens in terms of Gaza's administration, because the Israelis have made clear that they would not allow Hamas to continue controlling that area. The Israeli forces, even during the first phase, they will stay on the Philadelphia corridor, that is the border with Egypt, and also they're going to have a presence on the Gaza Israeli side, a buffer zone. And in fact, this was a buffer zone which actually resulted in these negotiations really protracting, like how deep would be that buffer zone. So I believe that it would not be easy at all. There's a lot of concern, although the Qataris and the Egyptians, they have tried to assuage those fears because they are the guarantors. The US would be the guarantor. But the fact that the contours of the second and third phases still have to be negotiated, that leaves much space for differences arising again. We see that even in the last days of once they had everything sorted out, even then, just yesterday, the Israelis said that until the Palestinians, the Hamas gives the names of the hostages to be released, they would not go ahead with the deal. So I think there is room for concern here, but at least a very welcome relief. You know, there's more than 46,000 people have died, and two-thirds of Gaza is in rubble, and the very, very direly needed relief support would commence there. So and at least, you know, because every day we were seeing killings of 20, 30, 40, 50 Palestinians, so that would stop. So this is a positive development for now.
Right. Let me go to Ambassador Jamil. Ambassador, you heard what Wajih Saab is saying, and then Jauhar Saleem Saab also. In your opinion, let's talk about the concern that we feel that this should go through, which is what Jauhar Saab was also elucidating on. Do you think that, you know, with Trump behind this, you know, of course, he has taken full credit, and with the Americans behind this ceasefire, there's perhaps more chances that, you know, it will go through. That is, you know, perhaps the optimistic view. How accurate is it?
As I said, it may not be very accurate because if we look into the history of what Israel has been doing since 1948, it's not the first time that there's a peace deal. It's not the first time that the Security Council, it is yet to be endorsed by the Security Council, by the way. And as the Qatari Prime Minister was saying, that it would need an endorsement through the binding Security Council resolution. So that probably is in the offing. And that could be done if the US is the main proposal, the one which proposed that. Then in that case, that could be endorsed. So that's not a big deal. Whether it's going to be a binding resolution under Chapter 7 of the United Nations Charter, that is yet to be seen, because Israel and the US both are very reluctant. Even in the past, they can go up to Chapter 6. And beyond Chapter 6 of the United Nations Charter, they really try and avoid it, the binding the resolution. So that is one factor. But the second factor is, yes, the US is the guarantor, and the US now is headed by the Trump. And Trump was the one who is the force behind this deal. But one bigger factor has to be also reviewed. So long as it goes in favor, or at least so long as the Israel is satisfied with whatever is the implementation of the deal, I think that could go on, and the Trump would also put his force behind it. Anything which goes beyond the wish and will of the Israel, then the Trump is likely to side with Israel. Why? If we see the last time, or if we review what Trump had done last time and what way he has favored Israel, ever since the inception of Israel, never ever the capital was shifted, these embassies were shifted from capital to the area which is a disputed area under the Security Council resolution. So under the international law, they were not supposed to do that. And Security Council also made the observation about it, but they didn't really care for it. Second was Golan Heights. Golan Heights, again, under the Security Council resolution, it was an occupied territory in 1967. So that was bilaterally, you know, seldom happens that bilaterally it was recognized as the sovereign piece of Israel. So these two big favor Israel, what it had during the Trump administration had extended to the Trump administration had extended to Israel. So if we keep that in our mind, then these three phases, there's a lot of twist and turn in it. But the first phase, it seems that is going to be implemented, accept that there could be some isolated. There are still some fighters, Hamas fighters, who are still fighting in isolation in the broken houses, in the tunnels, and all those places, who may not be having the access to the Al Jazeera and all other media. And if there is any firing takes place, Netanyahu has already said, the defense minister has already said yesterday night and this morning that stay away from our forces because they would be in the buffer zone and they would be Philadelphia corridor. Stay away because that would involve you in a danger. So that means they are not really going to withdraw. And of course, it was the second phase but they were supposed to at least go away from Gaza itself. But they're going to monitor that. One thing which they agreed with a lot of difficulties, and that was the no-fly zone over Gaza because Hamas wanted to have the movement and they wanted to really move those captives of Israel, so that they agreed. Because
let me go to Dr. Adnan Sarwar and then I'll come back to you. Dr. Adnan, I don't know if you've been following, but this ceasefire and its concerns that it should go through, primarily we've been talking about that, and the fact that, with the US behind it, with the President-elect Donald Trump taking full credit, what are the chances that there can be, issues with it? Is in terms of the credit also, and in terms of the way that the US is standing behind this ceasefire, how do you look at it? And how important is it? Because, of course, we've for a while been talking about that one country that can make a difference. And it seems that has finally happened.
Yes, thank you, Mahrukh. Actually, this question is such that I would say right at the outset that the United States credibility is also at stake. While you see lots of commentators and analysts have been saying that probably the United States may not be able to be an obstacle. For example, if Israel violates the agreement, and there are chances that it may do that. And one point of a very strong nature which I read was that even if they violate the agreement, probably United States of America would not strongly protest. But nevertheless, you see, the world had been waiting for this agreement, and President-elect Donald Trump had been, publicizing this so much that before 19th of January, that is tomorrow, some kind of agreement has to be concluded. And that has happened actually. So now he would, just not be surrendering to Israeli violation and would give them a bit of his thought despite all his friendship with that country, which is quite extraordinary also. So I think that since the United States and Bush is going to come in, most of the provisions and phases 1 to 3 would be implemented in his era, in the first some months of his era, which is just the beginning. So he would like to show himself to the world as a peacemaker, and he would try to gain the benefits from both sides, the Palestinians and Israel, the Gazans and Israel. So I think that there are fairly good chances that this will be carried out, though some violations here and there of some nature may occur, which is the typical Israeli style. But then you see in the long term, overall it would, I believe, I have some studies on it, which suggests to me that it would be upheld.
Dr. Adnan, I'm going to include you also. I'll come to Wajih Saab. As far as those Muslim Americans, because when we were analyzing Donald Trump's win, even before, there was a lot said about those voters, whether how significant they were, but that vote bank that of course was supporting Donald Trump because of his stance on ceasefire, because of his stance on Palestine. So at this point, it looks like those people that voted for him, and he probably wants to be seen as the kind of leader, like Dr. Adnan also said, who does what he has said. And you know that he said during his election campaign that within 1 week of having been sworn in, he would make sure that there was a ceasefire. So in that sense, it seems to be, he seems to have done what he'd said, right?
Yes, he has taken a lot of credit for that, and he's going to take a lot of credit for that, and it's due actually.
Yes.
Because he promised that they will end the war, and it has ended just before his even before his inauguration. So he has done what he promised. So that credit will go to him, and probably he will make sure, as far as he could, that to ensure that the ceasefire continues and there is peace between.
He will ensure that it goes through because of those, and of course because of those, that vote bank also.
Yeah, of course.
It means that that he is holding them, and in that sense, whatever it means for him or his
actually that will go. I mean that will have impact on other issues also. Probably he has also said that he will end the war in Ukraine. And you never know
if he follows suit.
If he follows through, and then that also happens. Something happens in Ukraine also. So whatever he has been promising,
he set the tone for the future of his presidency.
Yeah. And
with regard to that, let me go to Jauhar Saleem Saab. Jauhar Saab, is it true? Do you agree with this? I think what Wajih Saab here is saying, that with this ceasefire, and we hope that it goes through the way that it seems that it will, that Donald Trump has in effect set the tone for the future of his presidency. Whether we look at the future, we don't know if this will happen, but as far as the Ukraine war, for example, is concerned, and as far as overall his policy, one can agree or disagree with regard to other parts of the world also.
Yeah, in a way he has, but also we have to remember that a lot of work has gone into this by the Biden administration and the other governments involved, as I've mentioned, Egyptians and the Qataris, and there were others as well before, like the Jordanians. So he can't really take all the credit, although I had been saying it, and this is what has happened, that it has been done in a way by Netanyahu that Trump gets the majority credit. But now it will also be incumbent upon him to protect this ceasefire agreement to whatever. But like I said before, this is just an agreement about the first phase. The second and the third phases are yet to be negotiated. And that is a very important point, because we don't really know what will be the contours of that. We know the positions of both the sides. Now, moving sort of, on a more macro scale, Trump has promised about the ceasefire, but he had also promised about the Ukraine war ending. And he had claimed that he would end the war on his very first day. That is probably hard to see happening now. I think that the peace process on Ukraine would move forward on an accelerated basis. It will take some time. And whenever that happens, it may happen perhaps much sooner than what we've seen in the past in terms of, during the Biden administration's time, the two sides. In fact, there was not even a serious attempt by the Americans then, because they were more interested in sort of enhancing resistance and supporting resistance there against the Russians. But now what we will see from Trump is a peace. If that happens, it would be more on Russia's terms. So I had said it in my past commentaries as well, that in Gaza, in Palestine, we would see things happening more on Israel's terms. And in Ukraine, we will see things happening more on Russia's terms. But that part is true, that Trump is a deal maker by nature. He's a businessman, a real estate developer by profession. And that is why he doesn't really like conflicts, the violent conflicts. And his natural instinct is to try to negotiate a deal. And he has been pretty successful at that overall. And what we have seen now is he coming back with a stronger mandate. And this time what we not just a mandate in terms of the popular vote, but also the fact that in Congress, in both houses, Republicans now have majorities, and also not just the Senate and the House of Representatives, but also in the Supreme Court. We have more Republican and more like conservative judges. So that is probably going to be a very strong administration and Trump's style of diplomacy. Now, it has been working in some ways we have seen in the past as well.
I want to discuss this. On that note, like you are
effective.
saying, on that note, and we've discussed this before, I'll go to Ambassador Jamil on this also. Ambassador Jamil, like Jauhar Saab is saying, it would mean a stronger, Trump administration. We know that there is, as far as the bureaucratic administration of the US is concerned, there were some concerns before Donald Trump's win. Do you think there's going to be, and the way that they look at things versus how the Trump's presidency and Trump necessarily sees things? Do you think there's going to be a compromise, or do you think it's going to be, of course, like, his way, considering his numbers and the way that he's won?
Oh, this time Trump has more experience. Last time he did not have any experience about running a government. This time he is quite well. He has exposure of how to run a government. This time he knows how the bureaucracy works there and how strong it is in the deep state, what he's been calling. And he has already announced that through his executive order, he will try to clip the wings of some of the agencies in the United States, and he's going to also scale it down in terms of the strength. So yes, all these things he has already during the campaign and also during his various talks, he has outlined it. So there's I don't have much skepticism about it. Yes, he's going to do that, and that's why the entire bureaucracy there in the United States, they are also quite.
With regard to Ukraine and other parts of the world, as far as our part of the world is concerned, in terms of policy, what do you think? Is there going to be a change as far as the US is concerned under President Donald Trump, or you see more of the same, really?
Well, bullet points about our region. The Kashmir policy doesn't seem to be changing. The Palestine policy doesn't seem to be changing, which means that it would be on Israel's term. What my colleague Ambassador Jauhar was saying, and Ukraine, that seems to be very straightforward, and he has been mentioning about it, that it would obviously go in favor of Russia, because Russia has, in very simple terms, had informed the entire world that's a red line for Russia. And Russia has been saying it ever since Putin came in power. He informed the entire world that please don't come to the Ukraine. That would be our last line of defense, and that would compromise our national security. So that's why the Ukraine war started. And why Trump wants to really resolve all these conflicts, because Trump doesn't want to spend billions of dollars. Trump yesterday's one of the talks was saying that the United States is under $35 trillion debt. So he wants that debt to be covered. The United States to now have its economy improving. So it appears that he will try and save those extra expenses of the United States, which is huge, hefty. So he would like to save that, and he wants to go to the history so far as America First is concerned, and he wants to bring in. This is what he promised during the campaign. Right? So this is what probably he would make his best efforts to do that. So far as the Middle East is concerned, it's a little more complex and complicated because of Iran. See what happened yesterday once Russia and Iran, the Putin and the Iranian president signed. It's quite an important, quite a significant document they have signed, which means defense cooperation agreement, and which, if we go through those ingredients of it and the timings of it, it indicates that Iran, just about a week, about 4 or 5 days ago, Iran had issued a statement that we reserve the right under Article 51 of the United Nations Charter to retaliate and in response to the last attack of Israel and the attack on Hamas, Hezbollah. So he said, provided the peace deal is finalized, and in that case, we'll hold it on. So that was one part. But A bigger question here is that Israel and Trump both, they want that Iran should now open its nuclear facilities for the inspection. And that was a bone of contention last time also. So that leads me to another point. The long desire of Israel and somewhat it has a full support of the United States and its allies, that how to really strip off Iran from its whatever strength it has and whatever way it's going to go for the enrichment. It's already attained enrichment. Reportedly, it's more than 60%. People say it's even more. According to John Bolton, Iran has already reached to the level of 90% of the enrichment, which is a weapon grade enrichment. So that could be a bone of contention. And that's why probably Iran has gone into that defense cooperation agreement with Russia. And now Russia, Iran, North Korea, they are in alignment with just having this strength together. So having said so, it appears that there would be some heat generated, and then they have to Russia. That said, the U.S. does not want to be dragged into a war against Iran at this point in time. Israel has tried its best during this conflict, what we saw in Gaza and what we saw in Lebanon and what we saw in the Middle East. But America was really, and there are plausible reasons for it. They don't want a complete dynamics of the world global geopolitical situation change, and particularly in this region, it has its lot of repercussions if it happens. So that factor at a broader scale, I keep it in mind, and people like myself, they keep it in mind once we evaluate how Trump's this phase of his administration will go. Abraham Accord, yes, Trump would like to achieve that and expand it, and how and to what extent we will have the request or the pressure from our friends like Saudi Arabia and other countries. So that is another part which is to be seen.
Let me come back to you on that. Wajih Saab, do you agree with what Ambassador Jamil is saying as far as Pakistan and of course the region overall is concerned? In terms of the policy, according to him, he seems to think that it's going to remain largely the same. If we look at, of course, Kashmir, we look at, other areas of conflict. Of course, we don't know whether Ukraine also will follow, after Palestine as far as the conflict there is concerned.
Let's first discuss about Pakistan. Actually, for the United States, for almost last 3 decades, they have opted India over Pakistan in this region. So their relationship with India has grown to become very close since 1990s. US came back to Pakistan just because of the Afghan war after 9/11, and they were interested in Pakistan as long as their forces were here in Pakistan, and there was some sort of communication between both the countries. After the withdrawal of the American troops from Kabul in 2021, you haven't seen much communication between the two countries at the highest level. Even both times when the prime ministers changed here, the US president never called them to congratulate and never wrote any letters of congratulations. So we have gone that far in our relationship with the United States. So I don't even, the last time when Trump was the president, once,
you
there
think
was
that
meeting
dynamic
between Imran Khan and him in Washington once, but that was before the withdrawal from Kabul. After withdrawal from Kabul, there hasn't been much of the communications. So I don't think there's going to be any change on that count. Our relationship with the United States.
But it has, like you said, has its ups and downs as far as the US is concerned.
Yeah, our relationship with the United States since 1950s has been more transactional. We have been allies of the United States when the United States wanted us to be its allies. Was it in 1950s or maybe in 1960s?
Whenever they've needed us, really.
1980s when they needed us for Afghanistan, in 2000s when again they needed us in Afghanistan. So it was transactional. When the US needs us, we become their allies and they support us, and financially also, or militarily also. But when we are not needed, they normally impose sanctions on us, and that happened in 1960s, that happened in 1970s, that happened in 1990s, and it's still happening. Now you have seen every now and then the US imposing sanctions on one company in Pakistan or the other company, and from one matter or other matter. So that has been a continuous process since the birth of Pakistan, that our relationship with the United States has been that sort of transactional on the American needs basis.
Right, fair enough. Let me go to Dr. Adnan. Dr. Adnan, can you hear me? Ji, Dr. Adnan.
I can hear you.
Dr. Adnan, as far as, for example, we're talking about the conflict, the regions, we know that Trump traditionally has said, Donald Trump, that he doesn't want the US to participate in conflicts. But we've also established, as far as Pakistan is concerned, our region is concerned, the policy of the US overall stands to remain largely the same. Do you think that there can be any hope that we can get some kind of a positive feedback or kind of a positive involvement by the US with regard to, for example, Kashmir?
Right. Actually, I would agree to this thesis and this synopsis that, well, by and large, it is likely to be the same again. Because, but one thing is there that as far as the two presidents, Biden's this term is coming to an end today, and Mr. Trump's earlier one, none of them visited Pakistan while they had been giving tremendous importance to India. Trump visited India but didn't come to Pakistan in its first term. Biden also didn't telephone to the Pakistani officials who were probably waiting for his telephone call on some mutually agreed matter on some common purposes and aims and objectives. But one thing is there that the Americans are now really concerned on the resurgence of and the escalation of terrorist threats from Afghanistan. And the TTP and TTA and IK, etc. So on this count, you see, I think they would have to be depending now more than ever before on Pakistan. And they clearly know that the key to this kind of a containment of terrorism from this part, from the northwest of Pakistan and the subcontinent, is Pakistan. So this is my assessment that this time around, the United States is going to take Pakistan a little more seriously than what it was the case earlier on Trump 1.0 and Biden's administration. So, and then, the point is that Pakistan is a nuclear power also, and Pakistan recently has very, very resolutely rejected any kind of allegation of the nuclear kind of a threat to any country, and in this particular latest example that they thought that it would be against the United States, it was a pressure tactic indeed, we know. So the resoluteness of Pakistan, coupled with the fact that Pakistan, if they put Pakistan in a tight corner and just give priority to India alone, that is going to take Pakistan more closer to China and Russia. So that would not be something very good in favor of United States of America.
Right. Unfortunately, that's all the time that we have. Thank you so much for being with us today. Dr. Jamil Ahmed Khan, thank you for joining us. Wajih Abbasi, thank you for being with us. Jauhar Saleem Saab, thank you for your time. Dr. Adnan, Sarwar, thank you for being with us today. Overall, of course, Donald Trump is scheduled to be sworn in tomorrow, and his policies and how he sees conflict, of course, all over the world. He's voiced some of them. We also know as far as the ceasefire in Palestine is concerned, and let's hope that that goes through like it is expected, and that the US continues to stand firm behind it. Let's hope that positive outcomes can come, under the leadership of President Donald Trump for other nations and other parts of the world. And of course, for us, Pakistan, of course, has maintained cordial relationship with the US, with its ups and downs. And one hopes that there will be a further renewal of our relationship with the US. Thank you so much for joining us today on Perspective.